Part 1. The Sterile Silence. No one showed up for my 7-year-old daughter's spinal surgery. Not a single familiar face stood beside me in the blinding, sterile glare of that hospital waiting room. I sat there watching the heavy hands of the wall clock slowly crawl toward 8 a.m. When the double doors finally swung open and swallowed her tiny gurney, I was left utterly alone. The room around me was filled with strangers. I watched them hold hands, whisper words of comfort, and share a warmth that wasn't mine to hold. Hours dragged on like agonizing years. One by one, every other family in that room left with tears of relief and bright smiles. But my plastic chair stayed freezing cold. My phone remained dead and silent on my lap. Not a single text. Not a single call. 3 full days passed after the operation before my screen finally lit up. My heart skipped a beat. I felt a sudden surge of hope, foolishly thinking it was my mother, finally calling to ask how little Lily was doing, or if she had opened her eyes yet. But as I slid the screen open, the message read, "We need $5,000 for your sister's designer wedding venue deposit. Everyone is contributing by Friday." The steam from my coffee fogged up my glasses. My hands shook, but not from sadness anymore. It was pure, cold realization. I opened my banking app, typed in a transfer of exactly 50 cents, and in the payment note, I wrote a single line, "Buy her a cheap veil." The next morning, the bank manager called. And that was the exact moment our family dynamic cracked wide open. But before I tell you how I dismantled their comfortable little world, tell me in the comments, where are you listening from today? It helps to know I'm not alone in this quiet room. And once you hear the end of my story, tell me, what would you have done in my place? Part 2. The Invisible Daughter and the Signed Contract. I grew up learning how to disappear quietly. In our house, affection wasn't unconditional, it ran on a strict schedule, and it never, ever ran on my time. I remember coming home from school, clutching my report card with straight A's, my heart hammering with a childish hope that this time, just this once, they would look at me and say they were proud. But when I showed it to my mother, she didn't even look up from her magazine. She just waved her hand and whispered, "Put it away, Sarah. Don't brag. Chloe gets sensitive about her own grades, and we don't need another tantrum tonight." So, I learned early that keeping the peace came much cheaper than begging for recognition. The contrast between us was glaring. Once, Chloe lost a cheap silver necklace she had bought at a mall. My mother practically turned the entire house upside down, screaming and crying along with her. But when I misplaced my hard-earned state science trophy, the only thing my mother said was, "Stop being so dramatic, Sarah. It's just a dusty piece of plastic. We have enough clutter in this house anyway." After that day, I stopped asking for help. I started staying out of the way, doing the chores, paying the utility bills when Dad forgot them in his pile of papers, and stepping in to clean up Chloe's constant emotional disasters. I became the quiet one, the reliable one, the daughter no one ever checks on because Sarah is always fine. When I finally landed my first steady job as an analyst at the municipal hospital, my mother didn't call to congratulate me. Her first words on the phone were, "Oh, you're so lucky to have that steady salary, honey. Now you can finally help Chloe get started with her online clothing boutique." Chloe hadn't even finished her community college classes yet, but she was already the golden child who deserved everything. And because I was so thoroughly trained to play my part, I just swallowed the lump in my throat and said, "Sure." Because sure was what I always said. Then came the conversation that officially sealed this agonizing pattern. My parents sat at my kitchen table, their hands folded neatly in front of them like they were about to say grace. The room was heavy, smelling of coffee cooling slowly between us in the afternoon light. "It would just make things so much simpler if we had direct access to your savings account, Sarah," my mother said, her eyes wide and pleading, dressed up in her warmest, most maternal smile. "You know how it is. In case of emergencies, family always helps family." I hesitated, a cold knot tightening in my chest. I looked at my savings, money I had built from grueling overtime hours and sleepless nights. But my dad leaned forward, adding his heavy voice to the pressure. "You're always so organized and sensible, Sarah. We'd never touch a single penny of your money unless it was absolutely necessary. You can trust us." They left that evening with signed papers calling me their responsible, sweet girl. I remember the smell of the cold coffee left on the table, and the deafening silence after they closed the door. That was the exact moment I realized I hadn't just given them access. I had given them permission to walk all over me. Part 3. The Receipt of Gratitude. Over the years, my parents' emergencies looked incredibly specific. A broken dishwasher at their house, a luxury vacation deposit for Chloe, a massive bridal shower fund. Every single withdrawal came with a cold, dry text that read more like a business receipt than family gratitude. You're a lifesaver. Never a phone call to ask how I was doing. Never an invitation to just sit and talk. Just silent expectations dressed up as thank you notes. Still, I stayed quiet. When Chloe bragged about how mom always believed in her, I smiled. When dad told neighbors both his girls were doing great, I nodded. Even though I knew only one of us got saved seats at their table. The last time I saw them before Lily's surgery was during a Sunday family dinner. Chloe spent the entire evening talking about her upcoming wedding, obsessing over the flower arrangements and how everything had to be absolutely flawless. My mother leaned in, practically glowing. "Oh, darling, it will be the wedding of the decade." Not once did anyone ask about Lily. Not a single person asked about her spinal condition, her doctor's appointments, or how I was holding up. I passed the mashed potatoes around, pretending not to notice, pretending my heart wasn't breaking. But it was. It always was. That night, after they left, I sat alone at my kitchen counter, reviewing Lily's medical forms. Lily was asleep on the couch, her small chest rising carefully under a blanket. My phone buzzed with a group chat message. It was Chloe. "Dress fitting tomorrow? Can everyone pitch in for the final payment?" I stared at the screen until it went dark. I didn't reply. I just opened my folder labeled Lily's appointments and kept checking every box. I show up for my daughter even when they don't. 3 days after Lily's surgery, my house was too quiet. The hum of the air purifier, the click of the clock, everything sounded louder than it should. Lily slept on the couch, wrapped in a blanket that still smelled like the hospital. I made soup, keeping the volume of everything low, afraid of disturbing the only kind of peace we had left. My phone sat face down on the counter. No missed calls. No messages. No one had come. Not my parents, not Chloe. They all knew the date. They'd promised. When the kitchen timer beeped, I turned off the stove. That's when my phone buzzed. 3 short vibrations. 1 message. I almost smiled, foolishly thinking maybe it was my mother checking in on her recovering granddaughter. I wiped my hands and picked it up. "Need $5,000 for your sister's wedding dress. Everyone's contributing by Friday." The steam from the pot fogged my glasses. I read it again, slower this time, as if the words might change. They didn't. There was no, "How is Lily?" No, "How are you holding up?" Just numbers. A deadline. I stood there, spoon in hand, the soup cooling on the stove. In the other room, Lily coughed quietly in her sleep. I didn't answer. I didn't throw the phone either. I just set it down and stared at it until the screen dimmed. It wasn't that they forgot. It was that they chose not to remember. Part 4. The 60-cent boundary. I didn't reply to my mother's text. I just stared at the glowing screen until it went completely black, burying my feelings along with it. I turned the phone face down. That night, Lily slept soundly for the first time since her surgery. The silence in the house wasn't comforting, but it gave me a rare, uninterrupted space to think. I sat at the kitchen counter, illuminated by a single lamp, surrounded by medical bills, hospital discharge papers, and checklists, all the things I had kept meticulously organized because no one else ever bothered to help. I opened my banking app. My savings balance blinked back at me. This was my emergency fund, built over years of grueling late-night overtime, side projects, and canceled vacations. It was the very same account my parents had joint access to for emergencies. But emergency meant something entirely different to them. A broken dishwasher was an emergency. Chloe's wedding rehearsal dinner was an emergency. My daughter's major spinal surgery? Not even worth a phone call. I scrolled through our transaction history, a silent record of my own submission. $200 here, $500 there, $1,000 for some crisis of theirs. Little pieces of my life signed away under the illusion of family duty. I tapped the transfer button. I entered the amount, 50 cents. In the note field, I typed, "For the veil." Then I hit send. The confirmation chime was a soft, sharp sound. I exhaled slowly and turned off the phone. I didn't feel happy yet, just incredibly still. The next morning, the house smelled of toast and fresh coffee. Lily sat at the table, drawing rockets on the back of a hospital envelope. "Can we visit Grandma when I get better?" she asked quietly. "Not right now, sweetheart," I replied, keeping my voice perfectly calm. "They're very busy with the wedding." She just nodded, accepting the rejection far more easily than I ever had. Once she was resting in the afternoon, I opened my laptop. I logged into my bank account and went straight to the security settings. Remove joint user, Eleanor Vance. Click Confirm. Remove joint user, Richard Vance. Click Confirm. Change password. Enable two-factor authentication. See. The printer hummed as it spat out the confirmation page. I folded it neatly and slid it into a brand new folder labeled Access Revoked. A new chapter of my life filed away. At 2:10 p.m. the doorbell rang. It was an impatient, loud, incredibly familiar knock. My brother Julian. When I opened the door, he stood there with his hands shoved deep into his pockets, unable to look me in the eye. "Mom's hysterical," Julian said without greeting me. "She says you froze her account." "It's my account," I said quietly. He frowned. "She said it was family money." "It's not. Every single dollar in that account came from my paychecks." "But you promised." "I promised to help in emergencies," I interrupted, letting the silence hang between us. "Lily's spinal surgery was an emergency. None of you showed up. That promise has expired." Julian shifted uncomfortably, guilt flashing across his face. "You could have told us how serious it was." "I did, Julian. You just didn't want to hear it." He sighed, rubbing his neck. "Mom said you sent her 50 cents. "I did." "Why?" "Because," I said, looking him dead in the eye, "that is exactly what her concern is worth." Part 5. The Bank in the Boundary. Julian didn't argue. He just looked at me the way someone looks at a stranger they used to know. Then he turned around and walked down the driveway. When the front door clicked shut, I leaned against it and finally let out my breath. My pulse was steady. My hands didn't shake. For the first time in my life, my silence didn't feel like surrender. Felt like a shield. That evening, I sat on the floor beside Lily as she drew more of her colorful rockets. The TV was muted, and the living room was bathed in the warm, golden light of the setting sun. My phone buzzed on the counter, calls from unknown numbers one after another. I didn't answer. I didn't even check who they were. Instead, I opened my email on my laptop and found a message from the bank. "Access changes confirmed. All previous authorizations have been permanently revoked." I read it twice, then a third time. Not because I doubted it, but because I wanted to memorize this exact feeling, the precise, quiet moment when control over my own life returned to my hands. I printed the email, slid the paper into my new folder, and labeled it proof. After dinner, I tucked Lily into bed. She fell asleep mid-sentence, her tiny hand curled around mine. I watched her chest rise and fall, the faint shadow of her medical dressing catching the soft light of the night lamp. That dressing was proof, too, of endurance and of what was actually worth protecting. In the kitchen, I poured myself a glass of cold water and stared out the window. Across the street, warm lights flicked on in other houses. Families were gathering, laughing, sharing meals, existing completely without me. And for once, that realization didn't sting. Tonight, I wasn't excluded. I had chosen my own absence. The next morning began like any other. Gray light slipped through the kitchen blinds, the refrigerator hummed, and Lily was still fast asleep. I was pouring my first cup of coffee when the phone rang. Then it stopped and immediately rang again. It was an unknown number. I took a sip of my coffee and answered. "Miss Vance? This is Ethan Cole from Pacific Union Bank." His tone was polite, professional, and carefully measured. "Your mother, Eleanor, is currently here in my branch office. She is claiming she is having trouble accessing an account you share." I stared at the kitchen wall, at a tiny crack running up from the baseboard. "There is no shared account, Mr. Cole," I said evenly. "She was an authorized user. That authorization has been revoked." A long pause on the other end of the line. "Understood. However, she is insisting that this is a family fund, not an individual savings account." "It is my personal savings," I replied, keeping my voice cold. "Every single deposit came directly from my payroll. There is nothing to dispute." Through the receiver, I could hear muffled, frantic voices in the background. My mother's pitch was rising, sharp, desperate, and loud enough to bleed through the phone. "Tell her she can't just steal our money. Tell her." Mr. Cole's voice remained perfectly professional. "Would you like me to explain our security policy to her, Ms. Vance?" "Yes, please," I said. "And please note the exact time of this call in my file." He hesitated, perhaps realizing the weight of what was actually unfolding in his office, and then said, "Of course. Have a good day." The line went dead with a soft click. I set the phone down. The clock on the wall ticked once, twice, loud enough to sound like applause in an empty theater. Part 6. The Uninvited Guest. An hour later, someone began pounding on my front door. Art. The heavy, metallic thud shook the wooden frame. I didn't move from my stool at the kitchen counter. I just sat there, my hands wrapped around my warm mug, watching the dust dance in the sunlight. The knocks came again, faster this time, followed by a voice shouting through the thick wood. "Sarah, open the door. You can't do this. Mom is in absolute tears." It was Chloe. I set my mug down, walked slowly to the foyer, and cracked the door open, keeping the heavy brass chain lock securely fastened. Through the narrow gap, I met her eyes. Her makeup was slightly smudged, her chest heaving with dramatic indignation. "You skipped my 7-year-old daughter's spinal surgery to go to cake tastings, Chloe," I said, my voice dangerously calm, devoid of any anger. "Do not stand on my porch and lecture me about tears." Her face twisted, a flash of defensive anger crossing her features. "That is not fair, Sarah. You know how stressful this wedding planning has been." "No," I replied, staring at her. "What isn't fair is that I spent years funding your life while you couldn't even send a text to ask if my daughter was alive. But that's over now." She pushed against the door, but the chain held tight, refusing to budge. "You think freezing Mom's account fixes anything? You've humiliated her in front of the entire bank staff. Everyone is talking." "She humiliated herself," I said quietly. "All I did was log out of a system that was never theirs to begin with." For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The only sound was the distant hum of traffic from the main road. Chloe's eyes darted past my shoulder, landing on the neat stack of manila folders on the kitchen table, labeled in clean blue ink. It was the visual evidence of a woman who had finally stopped asking for permission. "You're destroying this family, Sarah," Chloe whispered, her voice shaking. "No," I said, looking her dead in the eye as I began to close the door. "I'm just not funding it anymore." I slid the door shut and turned the deadbolt. She didn't slam her fist against the wood again. She just stood there for a moment before I heard the quiet click of her high heels walking down the concrete steps. Somehow that fading sound felt much louder than any shout. By noon, the phone calls began to slow down. By 2 p.m. they stopped entirely. I sat in the absolute stillness of my living room, sipping a cup of coffee that had gone completely cold, the heavy ceramic mug comforting in my hands. Through the window, the world carried on just like it always did. Traffic lights changed, people walked their dogs, neighbors gossiped across fences, none of them knowing that a quiet, invisible war had just ended in my kitchen. Later that evening, a final email notification popped up on my screen. "Account audit complete. All external joint authorizations permanently revoked. Confirmation document attached." I downloaded the PDF, turned on my printer, and watched the paper slide out. The rhythmic, mechanical spooling was soft and incredibly final. Lily woke up from her nap and padded into the kitchen, her hair messy, her dinosaur pajamas slightly wrinkled. She rubbed her eyes and looked up at me. "Mom," she whispered, "can we make chocolate chip pancakes tomorrow morning?" "Of course we can, sweetheart," I said, reaching down to smooth her messy hair. She gave me a bright, sleepy smile and wandered back toward her room, dragging her favorite blanket behind her. The house went silent again, but this time the quiet didn't feel empty or heavy. It felt earned. I slid the printed bank confirmation into the folder marked proof, tucked it into the desk drawer, and turned the key. It was a small, unspoken ceremony of closure. Outside, the last rays of daylight faded, casting long, thin shadows across the kitchen counter where my phone used to buzz endlessly. Now it just lay there, face down, motionless. I closed my eyes and listened to the silence. It was the kind of silence that meant the storm had finally passed. Part 7. The Unopened Envelope. 2 months passed. The days slowly found their quiet, steady rhythm again. School drop-offs, grocery lists, and small talk with neighbors who had absolutely no idea about the invisible storm that had come and gone in our lives. Lily healed much faster than the doctors had predicted. The long, surgical scar on her back had faded from a raw, angry red to a soft, pale pink. Sometimes she would lift her shirt to show me, proudly declaring how strong she'd gotten. We lived much slower now. Our mornings smelled like cinnamon pancakes and fresh coffee instead of sterile hospital corridors, antiseptic, and endless worry. I had completely stopped checking my phone for messages that were never going to come. The heavy silence that once scraped my nerves raw had softened into something beautiful, into peace. Then one evening near dusk, the doorbell rang. When I opened it, there was no one on the porch. Only a thick courier envelope sitting on the doormat. There was no return address. Just my name, written in my father's familiar, stiff handwriting. I sat at the kitchen counter and carefully tore it open. Inside was a cashier's check for exactly $5,000, and a single sheet of paper folded neatly in half. Sarah, the letter read. We were wrong. Chloe's wedding venue deposit wasn't an emergency. Lily's surgery was. We chose wrong and we hurt you both deeply. This check isn't for you to cash and forget. It's to remind you of the value we forgot to show. I don't expect your forgiveness. I only want you to know that I finally understand. I read those words twice. Then I laid the check on the kitchen counter beside the cooling kettle. The paper fluttered slightly in the breeze coming from the open window, a soft, gentle sound like a long-awaited breath of relief. Lily walked into the kitchen barefoot, clutching her favorite dinosaur blanket. She looked at the paper, then up at me. Mom? Who is that from? Is it Grandpa? Yes, sweetie, I said softly. He wrote to say he's sorry. Lily frowned slightly, thinking it over. Does that mean we have to go see them now? No, sweetheart, I whispered, pulling her into a warm hug. It just means they're finally starting to learn. We don't have to open our door until we are completely ready. She nodded, perfectly satisfied with that answer, and wandered back into the living room to finish her drawing. The sun was sinking below the horizon, bathing our small apartment in a warm, protective gold. I folded my father's letter and slipped it into my manila folder, right behind the bank audit statements. It was proof of two very different things, what had been taken from me and what was finally mine again. I looked at our reflections in the dark window glass. Two shapes side by side, steady, unbroken. I didn't cash the check. I just let the silence keep it. Family isn't a debt you are forced to keep paying for the rest of your life. It's a choice, one you can choose to keep or choose to let go. I used to think that peace meant fixing every broken bridge between us. Now, I know that real peace is simply what's left when you finally stop explaining yourself. And for the first time in my life, the silence sounded exactly like home. Part 8, Outro, the release. If this story hit close to home, please consider subscribing and leaving a like. It helps the channel grow and ensures stories like Sarah's continue to be heard. Some wounds don't need revenge. They don't need endless arguments, dramatic confrontations, or letters of apology. Sometimes the only thing a deep wound truly needs is release. It needs you to finally pack up your things, step away from the table where love was never served, and walk into your own quiet future. Before you click away, I want to ask you, what does peace look like in your life? Have you ever had to choose silence just to protect your own sanity? Write your thoughts in the comments below. Let's talk. Because maybe somewhere out there, someone watching this video is finally learning that silence isn't a sign of weakness. Sometimes silence is the loudest answer of all. Thank you for watching and stay tuned for the next story.